Yeah, we're up there. We're starting to get up there, up in the 20s now. So I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday weekend, was able to spend time with all their family and loved ones. For me, it was such a gratifying experience providing the ministry of presence, like I talked about last week, ensuring that my parents, they had that moment of happiness, and that's a weekend that they're never going to forget, and it was really nice that I got to be a part of it. It was something that they're going to be able to enjoy all year long. So sorry, I'm a little bit the weather change here. We got a little bit of a cold front down in Florida, and we are down to like 70 degrees right now. So a little bit of weather change got my allergies kicking up. So now that the long weekend's over, it's time to get back to work. Let's get back to work. Just throw this disclaimer out there. I'm not a doctor. You all know that. I have no formal education, no medical or biological uh, education or anything like that. I'm just a United States Marine that I got diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer, and I refused to die after all of the Western medicine failed to work. So after about 3 years of treatment, um, I I exhausted all of my Western medicine options. So I found a little bit of comfort in repurposed medicine. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit today. All right. During my quest to stay alive, I started taking 5 specific medications that I refer to as my cancer cocktail. And the cocktail ingredients are fenbendazole, curcumin, AHCC, which is active hectose correlated I'm sorry, active hectose correlated compound, and ciminidine and annatto. All right, those are the 5 ingredients. Okay, I will break it down again. Fenbendazole, which is a anti-parasitic medication. I take Safeguard, which is a Merck product. I take the paste. Um, so that's the first ingredients. That's the star of the show. Okay, curcumin, which is pretty common. Most cancer patients are familiar with this drug, right? It's a anti-inflammatory, and it provides a myriad of benefits, especially if you have cancer. AHCC, active hectose correlated compound. Active hexose correlated compound. It's a collection of mushrooms, is really what it is. All right, it's shiitake mushrooms, turkey tail mushrooms. It's a bunch. It's a bunch of mushrooms. Look it up if you're curious about it. But it's definitely an immune system booster. Okay, so ciminidine is the fourth ingredient. Ciminidine is the active ingredient in Tagamet. Right, so antihistamine, acid reducer. Annatto. Annatto is actually vitamin E, except for it's only the portion of vitamin E that is beneficial to the fenbendazole when they work in concert. Okay, so there's your 5 ingredients, and that's a little bit of a breakdown as to what they are and why they are. Okay, so you can also find that posted on my um, Facebook group page, Beating Cancer Today, and all the literature is posted in the feature page. Okay, so hey, big news, guys, big news. We're putting together a more formal setting, creating a studio environment so we can enjoy company and conversation with the guests. I will continue to do this Thursday monologue just like I always do. All right. This is kind of, there's not much of a Q&A involved with these videos. It's more of just me spitting out things that I know and that I've researched and whatnot. Hopefully it's beneficial to people, but there's not a lot of dialogue here. All right. So I'm going to continue doing these because I feel like they're informative. All right. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a segment to Beating Cancer Today. And that segment is going to be called, we're going to do it on Wednesdays. and we're going to call this segment Warrior Wednesdays, is what we're going to call it. So I thought that was kind of catchy. We're going to still have our monologue on Thursday, just this one that you're watching now. It'll broadcast every Thursday at noon. And then we're going to add Warrior Wednesday on Wednesdays. And those episodes, when we have a guest, we're going to have those episodes, and it'll be a guest in a studio setting. Sometimes it'll be remote, but we're going to go ahead and try to, spice this thing up a little bit so we can add some conversation to the story and maybe try to grow this platform. All right. So that'll be on Wednesday, whenever it comes up. And we're still putting together the studio. So hopefully the studio is comfortable enough for people to come visit. All right. So and people are still going to go remote anyway, but at least we'll have a guest on the show and it'll be more of a dialogue. So I think it'll definitely be something that keeps your interest for a little bit longer. All right. That all those videos are going to be posted on every social media platform that we're on. But keeping in mind, the literature and stuff that we cite and stuff during these episodes will still be posted on our Facebook group page, Beating Cancer Today. All right. So at least you'll have a hub that you could go to for literature. All right. So people, listen, I wanted to go ahead and just touch on this, that people try ridiculous things during desperate times. Okay. So when you do that, you waste valuable time on, and this is time that you're never going to see again. So you're wasting valuable time on something that really didn't have all that much science to back up in the first place. Right. So, I mean, you're going to hear a lot of people say what works for them or whatever, but their testimony coupled with scientific evidence to support it, that's really what you need to look for. You need to look for the combination of things. All right. Because if you start trying just willy-nilly trying things, then you know what? You're gonna be wasting a lot of time that you're never gonna see again. All right. So not to mention some of the expense that people go through. A lot of people, they're flying all over the world trying to get different treatments and a lot of snake oil going on. Listen, before I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing anything. Okay. So it's the expense that people are going through. It's just fulfilling the business plan of those people that are trying to capitalize on such an unnecessary disease. But they're part of the problem. So although I'd never try to discourage anybody from trying anything. Okay. So, I mean, look, who would have thought that we'd be insane enough to be doing what we're doing? Right. And I mean, I've heard people doing a lot of crazier stuff too, but I just try to side with common sense. When it comes to math and logic, math and logic. I'm big on both of those things, right? And as it pertains to math, I think that I'd rather do a $7 medicine. There's no adverse effects, no known adverse effects or any long-term adverse effects. So I think I would rather play around with a $7 medicine, just willy-nilly. Because the $7 medicine has science to back it up and survivor testimony. So it's not so crazy to do. And it's $7 or, depending on what size you get, so I think I'd rather do that than mess around with a failed attempt, a failed attempt that's going to eat up a lot of time and it costs like $7 gazillion. So as it pertains to logic, there's more science and evidence to support that fenbendazole has an effect on combating disease than there is on Western medicine treatments to cure disease. There's more literature to support the fenbendazole. So I would suggest that people, remember this story. I've said it before in previous episodes. Just remember the story of the man that jumped on the horse and rode off in every different direction. You can't. You can't. You're just going to end up running in circles. So devise a plan that is disciplined and supported with scientific evidence and stick with it. Stick with it with discipline for long enough to measure the efficacy of the meds. Whatever you decide to do, stick with it long enough to measure the efficacy of the medication that you chose. Don't muddy the waters with a million different things because you'll never know what's working and what isn't working. Inevitably, you're going to want to know this information. I mean, initially you won't care. Whatever's working, great, let it work. But inevitably, you're going to want to know what was working versus what wasn't working, because this is going to be vital information so you can make adjustments if necessary. Especially as you get closer, there's a pattern of you getting, healthier. You're going to want to dial it in. So you're going to have to know what's working versus what isn't working, right? So remember, it doesn't matter how motivated you are. It doesn't matter how motivated you are to get healthy and to win this battle, because motivation without discipline, it's just hot air. And you've heard me say before, if anybody even watches these videos, you've heard me say it before. And you've got to be disciplined and structured in everything you do, right? Because everything in life, it's not just this protocol or this little cancer cocktail. It's everything you do in life, whether it's building yourself into a warrior, or getting the garbage out onto the curb before the truck passes, or passes your house. You got to attack everything that you do with a purpose. Act like you want to be there. Have a purpose. So everything you do, you got to have a purpose in, right? So you only conquer, you have to, you have to attack it like there's a reason, right? Like you're present you have a purpose in life, right? So you only continue to matter when you conquer the things that matter. So get serious about this shit. Let's go. Because there's a lot of people hemming and hawing, but you know what? You're just spinning your wheels and you're wasting time. You got to make a decision. Listen, it doesn't, this cocktail that I do, those 5 ingredients that I just gave you, it works. And it's worked for tens of thousands of people that I personally have, have some sort of interaction with. I know for a fact it works. Okay. So, but listen, you don't have to do my cocktail. There's a lot of things that do work, right? So you don't have to do this. Listen, that's why God made flavors. Different folks, different strokes. You don't have to, you have a free will of choice. Okay. But you should choose something, because the worst action is inaction, right? So you got to do something, right? Because you're burning time, man. And and I know maybe you're doing Western medicine, maybe you're doing some chemo right there or whatever, and you're on that ride. So it's not really like you're burning time, but the longer you wait and you don't get involved in some type of anti-parasitic protocol, as long as you wait, and it's just going to add to the time that you have to do the Western medicine. Okay. So I get so many inquiries from people, right? Jumping into the first episode, like the first topic of this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about the dosing of fenbendazole that I do, because I get a lot of inquiries from people, and they're just concerned with the excessive dosing based on their body weight. A lot of people are taking their body weight into consideration as it relates to such an extremely large animal, their body weight. Whether I take the cattle, the livestock, the cattle and horse fenbendazole paste from Safeguard. So for me, like it's dosed out to like cows and horses. So you have to do the math to get where you need to be, right? But from the applicator. So, but a lot of people are questioning because their body weight is so much less than livestock, and it's more than a dog, So depending on whether they're doing the Panacure or the Safeguard for livestock, So two different applicators, But some people do the pills. A lot of people do the pills. I don't like the pills. Um, I don't trust them. I don't trust the validity of the pills. So sorry, but I don't like it. I don't trust it. I trust the paste because these Kentucky Derby guys, the $1 million guys, they're pumping this paste into their uh, their racehorses. Their gazillion-dollar racehorses. They're not going to mess with their money. Right? Nobody's trying to poison their money. So that. I trust money. I trust the greed in the world, and I trust that they're not going to, you know, uh, piss into a fan. Well, it's just gonna hurt themselves. So anyway, that is the concern that I've been getting. I went off on a tangent there. Is that that people are worried about taking too much because of their body weight being so light, right? As it compares to livestock. Your cancer doesn't know how much you weigh. Your tumors don't know how much you weigh. So it's kind of when I think about it, I wouldn't I wouldn't think that my cancer knows how much I weigh, and for that reason, I'm just thinking maybe it's not relevant. But I wouldn't start with a dose lower than 666 milligrams in a day because I just know that I don't care how much you weigh, that's not going to hurt you, right? So 666 milligrams, I think it's kind of a safe bet. And I feel like anything less would delay the efficacy of the shock and awe process of killing disease. Because remember, fenbendazole starts uh, 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 it starts killing, attacking cancer cells within 24 hours of taking it, right? So I feel like you hit it with that much immediately. You shock it all. It's a shock and awe situation, right? And I feel like it definitely turns turns the ship. It turns the train, right? So and you start going in a different direction. So I wouldn't start with anything less than 666 milligrams. Initially, there may be some diarrhea. That's okay. If you're on chemo right now, that's a Tuesday for you, right? That's how it was with me. It's not horrible. Went down the wrong pipe. So yeah, it's the diarrhea. It's not crazy, right? It's a couple days, and it's not horrible. But initially, you'll probably get a little bit of diarrhea, and but you push through it because that's what we do. Because we're fucking warriors, right? So we push through, right? It'll subside within like a week or so, and then you increase the dosage periodically and try to climb to at least 1,000 milligrams a day. Like if I think you really should be, you have active disease, you got to be at 1,000. I have no evidence of disease, and I take 1,000 milligrams as a maintenance dose. So you really got to be at 1,000 milligrams. So try to get up to 1,000 milligrams if it's not too rough on your body. I don't think it will be. I think that people get a little hypersensitive to things sometimes, but this is not going to take you any place that you haven't been before. And it certainly is. I mean, it really, I haven't heard of any side effects. I haven't heard of any complaints, rather, to the side effects of diarrhea. So it really try to build it up to 1,000 milligrams if you can. Um, and that's where I really think that things start changing, right? The narrative definitely starts changing when you hit it like that. So if you're worried about liver toxicity or something like that, I would add milk thistle to the equation, but only if it's necessary according to your labs, right? If it's not necessary according to your labs, don't add it, right? So I actually have never added milk thistle to my because I never had to. So so otherwise, don't complicate it. If you don't have to, then don't. The only time I would add anything is if your labs indicate that you should take caution of something. Otherwise, if it ain't broke, let it ride. Right. The premise of increasing the dosage is that there's really no known adverse effects to the concept is to blast the disease with the initial dosage and then tailor it back after achieving like you reach the no evidence of disease, the NED status, right? So that's kind of the concept behind it, right? So, well, moving on to the next topic of conversation. I hope that cleared some things up about the dosing, right? But moving on to the next topic of conversation, I wanted to express one of the worst things that are happening in this world, right? It's the funneling of propaganda and deception and effort to steer the narrative of profiteering through a lifestyle that will only financially benefit a few, but destroy the masses. And the study, folks, this is happening every day all over the world. Nobody is well, I guess if you live off grid, maybe you might not be affected by this, right? But it's really affects every different realm of life, right? So I mean, even if you are off grid, you get affected in some sort of way because you do need something at some point somewhere in your life, right? So, but today I wanted to talk about a world and the lifestyle that's affected all of us in the worst way, our diet, right? So it seems that I'm pretty convinced that the majority of tragedy in all of our lives, as it pertains to health, begins with what we put into our mouth and carrying all that stuff around in your gut, right? So a lot of people, I end up getting into conversations. Um, have you ever thought about reducing your intake of red meat and altering between fish and chicken and pork? Well, not so fast. Pork really isn't the other white meat. Pork is red meat, and also is an example of the power and influence of marketing. My whole life, I think I thought that pork was red meat, or I'm sorry, the other white meat. I thought it was an alternative to red meat, but it's not. Pork is actually red meat, but it was marketed as the other white meat because people wanted to, well, the marketing, the industry wanted to separate. So they had two different profit margins, right? So in 1944, a marketing campaign for grape nuts actually would be unleashed, saying, "Eat a good breakfast, do a better job, during raising, I mean, it was all radio back then, right? So maybe it would be great if I had radio with no camera, all right, just a podcast with no camera. So, but it was all radio back then, and it was radio ads like that. That really ran the world. The radio ads, right? It would be mentioned. Nutrition experts say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That was like a big thing, right? And this marketing phrase, it actually became soaked into society, right? Ever since it got kicked off on the radio, like back in the day, it just like this. It was just the mentality. Breakfast, the most important meal of the day. That was just how I grew up, and I think most people grew up like that. And as you can imagine, this made the cereal industry powerful, really, really powerful, giving them a monopoly over breakfast. They completely just took over from like the farmers, the natural good stuff. So so there was a guy, Jackson, he was a preacher, and well, Kellogg, right? A religious man, he believed that masturbation was the greatest evil, which bland, healthy foods like corn and flakes and what was it? Corn flakes, uh, I don't know, various like wheats and stuff like that, oats and stuff. He thought that those foods could prevent people from masturbation because it was evil. So he was a beauty, right? But Kellogg and his partner Jackson, they were both 7-day evangelists, right? And they were super super religious nuts and nuts, right? And so Kellogg's, so those guys, they they tried to sell it as like a sense of religious morality to their ideas around the importance of healthy eating. So that was like that was the audience that I guess they were trying to capture, or whatever was going to give their business plan credibility. I don't really know what the thought process was behind it, but uh, so this Dr. Kellogg there, John Harvey Kellogg, the man, he gives his name to one of the world's most famous breakfasts, the cereal brands, right? And invented the first granola and then cornflakes, and as part of like a pure a Puritan diet, right? It was designed to suppress sexual desire and lead America away from sin. Like that was a whole preface behind his cereals, right? And then they marketed it, the cereal, to say it's the most important meal of the day, to try to get people to eat it because their theory was that their cereal was going to make everybody impotent and make everybody not masturbate and all this stuff, right? So these evil people were using their propaganda with it being the most important meal of the day. They were using that to get people to eat the food that they were convinced was going to completely wipe out your libido, right? And nobody was having sex. Certainly, nobody's having sex with themselves, but masturbation or whatever, it just completely is going to nothing. No libido, no nothing. So the cliche that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and one with very specific food groups, mind you, developed from those early days of cereal. It's not true. In fact, it's really not true, right? So I've been getting a lot of inquiries as to what I do in terms of dieting. The answer to that question is well, it's really not that simple. So as I found it, it's more of a lifestyle than it is of than a diet that I follow, right? So I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting. I only eat between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. And that's usually limits me to like one meal, right? So one meal a day, right? And for me, my food intake controls everything in my life, right? So it, my bowels tend to work a bit differently than others because of due to cancer. So things tend to work a little bit differently, right? So I guess for that reason, the intermittent fasting really works out for me. But not only is breakfast the least important meal of the day, skipping it may be healthier than actually eating it, right? So intermittent fasting isn't a torturous practice, and it really doesn't require much in the way of effort. I mean, all you got to do is be lazy, right? Doesn't really and not eat. So, like, if you think about it, you stop eating like at 8 o'clock p.m., right? And then you go to bed and you're sleeping for all those hours, and then you skip breakfast in the morning, right? That's already 16 hours between the meals before you eat lunch. So, in 16 hours, at 16 hours, uh, you know, everything starts to eat itself. Autophagy starts occurring, right? Autophagy starts occurring in your cells. It starts eating all the bad stuff, right? At 16 hours. So, so it's fasting it triggers a metabolic pathway, right? It called the autophagy. So, which removes all of the waste material cells, right? All the waste materials from your cells. So when you starve, right, the intermittent fasting, you skip that meal at breakfast, that gives you 16 hours. And at 16 hours, the autophagy starts. So if you go beyond the 16 hours, it just creates more and more of a better effect, right? So it's healthier. The longer you go without eating is healthier. So I actually I go beyond the 16 hours and I go all the way up at least 18 hours. Most of the time, 20 hours is what I do. So intermittent fasting it's been shown to help prevent cancer in some human studies, right? Research in humans. It also suggests that intermittent fasting can help reduce the side effects of chemotherapy. So if you're having issues with that, if you're in treatment right now, fasting could help that situation. It may have benefits, for your brain health, including your increasing growth of the new neurons and protecting your brain from damage because the chemo is going to certainly leave its mark. That chemo brain thing, it's not a joke. You do have some fog there. And I think the intermittent fasting actually kind of helps reverse that effect. Right. So during a 16-hour fast, your body undergoes a process, that process of autophagy, right? And that's the process where your body starts destroying all of the old damaged cells in the body. Autophagy recycles the cells that help in the reduction of inflammation. So in the body, and that reduces diseases because it actually recycles those cells. So now you have more reduction of inflammation. So it also improves the health of your skin. Like your skin starts looking better. It prevents wrinkles and aging, acne. If you have acne, it gets rid of that. it it improves the immune system and disease fighting capacity, right? So it just it- how your body naturally fights your diseases, your immune system, which also related to the P53 that the fenbendazole boosts, by the way, just to throw that in there. All right, it increases the generation of new brain cells in the nerve tissue that increase brain and performance and improve the memory and mood and focus. So if fasting increases certain proteins in the brain called brain-derived neurotropic uh, factor. So that brain-derived neurotropic factor, which helps the brain to adapt and withstand stress, right? So these proteins also increase the production of brain cells and improve their functionality. So according to the national, I'm going to cite something. Bing, it's going to be up on the thing. Uh, so according to the National Institutes of Health, the National Institute of Health, fasting may reduce the development of Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease or develop protective measures against damage from stroke. So that's significant, right? Pretty significant. And all you got to do is skip a meal. I mean, it kind of seems like a no brainer to me. And I just feel better. I just feel better. Those who have tried, the 16-hour fast, all those people say that it's significantly more productive during they're more productive during the day because they're fasting hours. The whole time they're fasting, they're doing stuff because they're not they're spending less time worried about, hey, where are we going for lunch, or where they're spending less time worried about eating and more time worried about being productive. So they're channeling their energy into other beneficial tasks throughout the day. So I mean, it's kind of it contributes. It's beneficial in so many different ways. Conversely, I get out of bed in the morning to start my Marine Corps daily 7, right? My exercises and my routine of self-care. And by the time I finish my morning exercises, my spiritual meditation, and the day by that time I get ready for the day. By the time that time comes where I'm ready to start the day, I already forgot about any missed meals. I've been so busy doing that other stuff, my self care and stuff like that. My morning routine, which I think everybody should have, and it does add some structure to your day. If you don't have time for it, wake up earlier because that's when I get up. So having a routine in the morning forces you to get out of bed. And as I've said so many times before, I tell my dad this all the time: motion creates emotion. So when you get your blood flowing, the oxygen starts circulating in your body and it creates an energetic effect that will carry you throughout the entire day. It's going to keep your blood flowing, and it'll rejuvenate your energy. It's just going to carry you out through the entire day until you lay your head down on your pillow at bedtime. So having a routine in the morning, it allows you to structure your day, creating a foundation for you to be well. You can build on things throughout your day, right? Throughout your journey. It creates the discipline and organization. When you have a routine, it gives you a little bit of purpose. When you structure your day, it creates opportunity for you to put the important things in order. So your diet would be on your schedule, and so will your bowels. That's a big thing with me. Your energy level will increase, creating freedom to move about the cabin, right? And you get some mobility back. You get to work on your mobility. You build core strength so you can be stronger for the battle. It all comes back to getting stronger for the battle. Because even the cancer, whether it's leaning on you or easing up on you or whatever, we're all still in the battle. Okay. Having a routine in the morning allows you to focus on yourself, and it gives you the opportunity to provide self-care while building back a stronger and better version of yourself. It's time to get selfish. You got to be a little bit selfish here. Your mental health and your mindset, it's vital, a vital part, an absolute vital part of you being triumphant in this battle. Absolutely. Strengthen your mind, your body, and your spiritual self. This will transform you into a warrior in less time that if you have a solid foundation. You become a warrior. You achieve warrior status quicker when you have a solid foundation and you have a routine. I don't need to sit here and articulate or regurgitate. I don't need to sit here. Bleh. I don't have to sit here and regurgitate a bunch of motivational jargon to light a fire under you guys. The radiation from your treatment is going to do that. It'll be hot enough during your battle through Western medicine, right? So, listen, change the narrative and control the outcome. I'm gonna beat the hell out of that saying too. Change the narrative and control the outcome. Change what got you to the point of being sick. Stop being a victim and get angry about it, because there's nobody coming. There's nobody coming to rescue you. This is your cross to bear, folks. If you are in this battle, this is your cross to bear. You never had to be a warrior before, but lucky for you, now you have the opportunity to be a warrior. This is your chance. You don't have to be, you have the opportunity to become a warrior and kick this thing's ass. Some people never get to accomplish that. So consider yourself lucky and get to work. Again, I'm just going to tell you, I want to let people know the ingredients again of my cancer cocktail: fenbendazole, curcumin, AHCC, active hexose correlated compound, cimetidine, and annatto. Those are the 5 ingredients, folks. Live it, learn it, take it, love it, and definitely benefit from it, because it's going to change your life. Please share these videos, subscribe to all of our channels. The larger we could grow this platform, the more lives we could save. So, folks, if you're looking for answers, you found us for a reason. Cancer is a very, very curable disease. We've been waiting for you. Understand that God has a plan for all of us, and you are right where you're supposed to be.